Have you ever wondered how many voices quietly live within you? Have you ever stopped to think if your fears truly belong to you, or if you inherited them from ghosts that never found rest? And what if I told you that while you pretend to be in control, there is an ancient, shadowy force shaping every one of your sighs? Until you bring the unconscious into awareness, it will guide your life, and you will call it fate. No matter how rational, successful, or enlightened you think you are, behind every decision, impulse, or doubt lies a living labyrinth, a web of unchallenged fears and repressed desires. That labyrinth watches you, gently mocking you, as you live under the illusion of control. You walk with conviction. You think you know yourself, but deep within, something ancient slumbers. A leviathan, a symbol of everything hidden, versions of yourself you silenced to fit in. It's not a monster, it's your shadow, formed by what you never allowed yourself to feel, by what you entered to be accepted. And today, you are invited not to destroy it, but to see it, to cross the mirror you always avoided, because there dwells not only fear, but also power. That whisper you feel in the silences doesn't want you to change. It wants you to remember, to return to the parts of yourself you hid, the rage, the tenderness, the creativity, the pain, the child, the warrior, the lover. This isn't a call to be someone else. It's a call to be whole. Because true freedom isn't the absence of fear, but rather deciding without fear ruling you. It's living with an open heart, without acting, without running, without pretending. It's stopping surviving, and finally, starting to live. Carl Jung used to say, the worst prison is the one no one sees, and that's exactly where you live. Look at your routine. How many choices were truly yours? How many fears were passed down through voices from the past? How many loves did you sabotage because your mind needed to prove you weren't worthy of being loved? You're not in control of any of that. Your unconscious is the one pulling the strings. While you work, smile, kiss, make promises, something behind your gaze moves your hands like you're a puppet. It's a hungry ghost. It feeds on everything you suppress just to be accepted. On the screams swallowed in childhood, on the guilt buried in adolescence, on the desires murdered in the name of a reputation. Jung called it the shadow. But before you get there, you need to accept a simple truth. You are not who you think you are. The person you display online, the one who meets deadlines, smiles in pictures, that's only the surface. A social mask, hiding a wild territory. Within that hidden territory live your rage, your jealousy, your childish pride, even fantasies you dare not admit. That's why you repeat cycles, cling to what hurts, and stumble over the same mistakes. Because the script isn't in your conscious mind. It's written in the shadows. Many won't bear to hear this. It's easier to blame fate, family, the government, even God. More comfortable to say, that's just the way I am, even if that I is just a poorly rehearsed role. Scratch the surface, and chaos appears. And deep down, a part of you knows it. That's why you run away. That's why you fill yourself with distractions. That's why silence scares you more than noise. Jung understood that fear. He knew that facing the monster demands the courage of someone who'd rather die unknown than be reborn, torn apart from within. Do you think you control your fits of rage, your impulses, your shame? You don't. These demons are older than your last name. They're ancient. They live in the collective unconscious that breathes through each of us. To ignore this is to sleepwalk through life. And someone who sleeps doesn't choose. only repeats. They think they're free, while calling destiny what is actually psychic programming. Look at your choices. How many would you make if you didn't need to please, if you weren't afraid to lose, if you didn't carry that childhood fear of being rejected like a hidden wound? Breathe. Feel the lump rising in your throat. That's your mind trying to drown out what I'm telling you. But it's already too late. Once this truth is heard, it burns inside. No matter how many self-help books you stack on top, it stays. And it will grow. Jung didn't want to soothe you. He wanted to rip you open, so light could enter through the cracks. He wanted to show you that behind the mask lives hell, but also the key to escape it. Accepting this is the beginning. It's opening the basement door. It's breathing in the mold of those parts of yourself you buried in shame. Maybe it hurts. It will hurt, but there's no other way out. You're not who you think you are. You're much uglier, much more beautiful, much freer if you dare to face it. Take a deep breath. Look around. Everything binding you is inside, and so is the key. You tell yourself you're good, civilized, reasonable, polite, but deep down, you know that's not all you are. But deep down, you know that's not all you are. Behind the smile, a starving beast breathes. Carl Jung gave it a name, the shadow. The shadow isn't a pretty metaphor to post with uplifting quotes. It's real. It bites. It rules your urges when you pretend they don't exist. It's all the things you swept under the rug to be accepted. Anger, envy, greed, lust, cowardice, lies. As a child, you were taught feeling those was ugly, worse, that admitting them was unforgivable. So you learned to smile, to swallow it all, to repress it. But what's unseen rots. And what rots doesn't die. The shadow thrives in the dark, whispering commands while you sleep. How many times have you judged someone with secret hate? How many times have you wanted a friend to fail? How many times have you enjoyed a cruel piece of gossip? Do you think you're innocent? You're not. No one is. Jung wrote, "We all carry a shadow." The less it's integrated into our conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. You can deny it. Say, "I'm not like that." But denial leads to projection. You start seeing monsters outside because you can't bear to face the ones inside you. The envy you accuse others of is only a mirror of your own. The betrayal you fear so much is the whisper of your buried urge to betray. The cruelty you condemn in others is just the edge of your denied sadistic pleasure. You pretend to be in control, but with every burst of anger, every impulsive lie, every cheap excuse, the shadow laughs at you. It loves to wear the mask of morality. It makes you believe you're better than everyone else, and that illusion is its trap. The worst prisoner is the one who doesn't realize they're imprisoned. You think you're free because you think you're good, but goodness without a shadow doesn't exist. Whoever ignores their darkness lives under its rule. The shadow shows up in the relationships you destroy, in the chances you ruin, in the friendships you poison with jealousy disguised as care, in the laziness that stalls your purpose. You say, "This is just who I am. It's not my fault." But it is. You're responsible, because turning away from the shadow is a choice, and every choice comes with a cost. As long as you pretend not to see it, it directs your every step. Jung said, there's only one way. Face it. Smell the rot, feel the fire, call the monster by its name. Not to kill it, but to tame it. The shadow won't vanish, it must be embraced. When you accept your anger, it becomes strength. When you accept your envy, it transforms into healthy ambition. When you accept your lust, it becomes guiltless pleasure. But as long as you fake purity, you stay a captive, trapped in a rotting cycle of denial and outbursts. Want to stop suffering? Then go to the basement, turn on the light, speak with the thing you feared all your life. It's not pretty, not gentle, but it's human. Those who don't know their shadow are a danger to themselves and others. Those who do carry a loaded weapon, but know where to aim it. Jung never promised peace. He promised wholeness. And wholeness hurts more than goodness, but it's the only path to freedom. Now breathe. Smell the damp scent of your mental basement. It's always been there. But today, for the first time, you have the courage to enter. And I'm here, in the dark, waiting for you to finally face the monster you've been silently feeding. What is perfection? Just a disguise for pretending to be good. He looked deep into the abyss of the human soul and saw a brutal truth. You're not truly alive if you're still running from your own darkness. That's why he didn't invent a therapy to fix you. He carved a path meant to tear you apart. He called it individuation. To individuate isn't to become your best version. It's not about repeating shallow motivational quotes. It's not about manifesting abundance while smiling at yourself in the mirror. Individuation is the death of who you think you are and the birth of who you actually are. Sound poetic? It's not. It's a bloody birth, because it forces you to face all you've hidden from yourself. The ego shouts, "This is who I am. I know myself." But the psyche just laughs. You know nothing. Individuation means confronting every part you've denied, integrating your shadow, making peace with opposites, admitting that you are capable of love, yes, but also of hate, of courage, but also of cowardice. It's about no longer being a fragment, but becoming whole. Wholeness is not purity. It's the radical acceptance that within you live both angels and demons, and each one must have its rightful place. Those who refuse to do this live in constant conflict with themselves. They lash out at others. They destroy what they touch. They feel empty, even when surrounded by love. Jung said that individuation is like walking through a dark forest with no path. Each tree is an old trauma. Each shadow, a guilt you inherited. Each noise, a desire you wish you never felt. You'll get lost. You'll want to turn back. But there is no return for those who begin to see themselves naked. Most people quit. They pretend not to hear the forest calling. They return to the comfort of personality. They live on the surface, numb. But the ones who persist cross. And on the other side, they find something that can't be taken away. Integrity. Integrity is living without fear of contradiction. It's looking in the mirror and not feeling ashamed of the monster behind your eyes. It's being loyal to yourself, even when the world demands that you lie. Individuation isn't a diploma. It's not a permanent state. It's a process. It lasts a lifetime. It unfolds in crisis, in grief, in collapse, in endings that tear your flesh but set your soul free. Each loss tears off a piece of the ego and makes space for something real to grow. You don't need to rush, but you do need courage. The courage to sit still in the middle of the storm and say, "I accept this. I accept my anger. I accept my emptiness. I accept my fear of rejection. I accept that I can be kind, but also harsh, not to glorify it, but to stop lying to myself." This is rebirth. Not a miracle, but the result of daily effort. Those who dare to live this way lose the illusion of perfection, but gain something far more powerful, the freedom to be whole. It's not a path for everyone. Few can endure the pain of shedding the mask, but those who do will never live on their knees again. Just breathe and listen to what silence is trying to say. Deep within, your soul is whispering, "This is what I've always longed for." Jung understood this, and now, so do you. You say you want freedom. Freedom from fear, from your past, from those who hurt you. But freedom isn't a gift, it's a cost. Carl Jung always knew. Most people would rather live in chains than tear off their own skin. True freedom isn't about having no rules. It's about having no inner lies. As long as you pretend to be someone you're not, you live inside a disguised prison. As long as you blame others, you stay shackled to your wounds. As long as you pretend it doesn't hurt, you bleed in silence. Freedom isn't born of excuses. It begins the moment you choose to see what you've always hidden. When you stop pointing fingers. When you say, without masks, this is me too. You want to be free? Then stop running. No one runs from themselves forever. Eventually, the psyche collects, through crisis, through a breakdown, through a sudden illness. It's the soul knocking on the door you've spent your life avoiding. You can ignore it. Many people do. They go to doctors, take pills, do breathing exercises, smile for photos, but inside, they're still rotting. Because the pain doesn't come from the world. It comes from the illusion that we're only made of light, from believing everything must be controlled. Freedom begins when you sit in the prison of your fear and stare your monster right in the face. No excuses, no cliches, no desire to walk out as a victim. It's brutal, it's lonely, it's humiliating for the ego, but it's the only door that leads out. Whoever finds the strength to open that door pays a price. They lose their masks, they lose fake relationships, they lose the comfort of being a victim, they lose the illusion of control, but they gain the one thing no one can ever take away, the ownership of their soul. Do you know how many truly live like this? Very few. Most pretend, smile, go to therapy just to learn how to function again, and then go back to pretending. Jung didn't want you to be functional. He wanted you to be whole. He wanted you to be free. Free to bleed when it hurts, to scream when it's unjust, to love without needing permission. Freedom doesn't go hand in hand with fear. That's why so many trade it for comfortable chains. They call it stability. They call it routine. They call it, this is just who I am. But that's not who you are. You are far more than that. But to become who you truly are, you'll have to kill the old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. You'll need to hold a funeral for the persona you've carried for decades. You'll have to hear the cry of your shadow and embrace every part of who you are. On the other side, there's no blue sky or rainbow. There's a path. You'll walk it with wounded feet. You'll bleed a little more, but for the first time, every single step is truly yours. No one else is writing your story anymore. Breathe. Feel the sting of truth cutting through your throat. It hurts, but it purifies. Now you must choose. Will you return to your cell, or will you walk through the door and pay the price of owning yourself? Carl Jung gave you the map. I only held your hand to this point. From here on, it's just you and the echo of your soul, crying out to be free. You've made it this far. You read each word like someone uncovering a forbidden secret, maybe hoping for a quick cure, a formula, a fix for the fire in your chest. I'm sorry. There is no cure without loss, no freedom without symbolic death. You're no longer the same person who began listening to this voice in your mind. Carl Jung never promised salvation. He promised awareness. And awareness isn't light. It's heavy. It crushes. Because once you know, you can no longer blame the world. You can't lie to your reflection. You can't skim through life when it's asking you to dive deep. You were trained to escape. When pain knocks, you open the fridge. When anxiety screams, you play another show. When fear itches, you smile and say you're fine. You're not, but you could be if you're willing to keep descending. Because the psyche has no bottom. The unconscious is a pit that mocks your fear of heights. Are you ready to dig deeper? To return for the child you left crying in that dark room? To forgive the one who hurt you and the one you pretend you didn't hurt too? Being human is messy, contradictory, chaos. Freedom isn't about perfection. It's about being honest with your flaws. The one who lies to themselves creates monsters that feast on their chances. But the one who accepts themselves wholly finds the courage to unlock doors shut for generations. You carry ghosts from your parents, your grandparents, echoes that whisper through your mind like a wounded lineage calling out. Jung called it the collective unconscious. That's where the oldest part of you lives, and also the keys to who you might become. Maybe you ask, how do I get out of this? But let me ask you, who told you that you have to get out? You don't escape the abyss. You become part of it. You sink into it, all the way down. And instead of being destroyed, you gather strength from the same darkness that used to break you. From this point on, every decision has gravity. Every relationship reveals more than you're ready to see. Every dream brings messages your ego tries to erase. You won't sleep peacefully again. And that's okay. Too much peace is numbness. Disturbance means you're alive. Jung didn't want you happy like a butter commercial. He wanted you human. And that's much deeper. Beyond the abyss, what's left of you is wilder, more honest, more alone too. But it's a clean solitude with no lies, a fertile silence where your soul can finally speak. Listen, it doesn't shout, it whispers. In the sleepless nights, in the tear that slips from nowhere, in the quiet voice of intuition that tells you who stays, who leaves, and who never comes back. It's too late now to pretend. The maze has opened, and you've seen the Minotaur living inside your chest. If you want to sleep peacefully again, forget all of this. Pretend it was just another random video, another story that has nothing to do with you. Just another video, another story that doesn't belong to you. But if something inside you still burns, even now, then welcome. You've just been reborn, and no one can bury someone who has already learned to live with their own darkness. Now that you've walked through every shadowed hallway of your mind with me, breathe. Feel what was left behind, silent, buried deep in your chest. It might ache. That's how it is. It's the cost of being awake. Jung wouldn't take that pain away. And I can't either. But I can remind you of something almost no one says. You are not alone in this. You never were. As you listened, some forgotten, broken, hungry part of you began to wake up. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It'll ask for change. It will demand that you stop repeating old patterns. Listen to that part. Feed it with truth, with silence, with courage. From today forward, every pain that comes is not punishment. It's a sign that you refuse to keep living asleep. And that, my friend, is real freedom. You could have picked any shallow video with pretty lies to soothe your tired mind. But you stayed. You stayed until the end. I deeply respect anyone brave enough to face what hurts. Let me tell you something personal. I hid behind masks too. I betrayed myself. I feared opening the very door I've now helped you push wide open. It was lonely, but it was real. Thank you for sharing this immersion with me. May your soul never again settle for scraps of superficiality. May your shadow, now seen, no longer scream to be heard. And may the next time silence visits, you dare to sit beside it like an old friend. Now do this. Take a deep breath and prove you're not just another curious passerby. Let me know in the comments what part of you screamed the loudest during this video. Tell me without fear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do so now, because I promise to continue whispering truths that few dare to speak. Share this video with whoever needs to hear it. Sometimes a whisper can ignite a light in the midst of the abyss. It's your choice. Ignore it all or dive right in. The decision is yours. From here, I remain in the darkness, waiting for you. Have you ever wondered who you are when no one is watching? Is every act of kindness born from love or from the hunger for admiration? And what if even spiritual light could be used as a mask for the shadows of the ego? Carl Jung once warned that whoever fights monsters must take care not to become one. But what happens when the monster dresses in white robes, speaks in the name of light, and smiles with rehearsed humility? There is indeed a darkness disguised as illumination, one that seduces, enchants, and promises salvation while demanding your submission. In this journey, we will explore a phenomenon as subtle as it is unsettling: spiritual narcissism. Perhaps you have already encountered it without realizing. Perhaps it wounded you, or maybe at some point you too were seduced by that invisible urge to appear higher than you really were. This is not about pointing fingers, but about looking within to see how the ego, hungry for control and admiration, can wear the mask of guru, guide, or master. And often it dwells closer than we wish to admit. All of us, in some way, carry a hidden longing to be seen as special. But what happens when that desire puts on spiritual clothing? What if we pursue enlightenment only to stand on invisible pedestals and look down on others? Along this path, we will not only examine the behavior of spiritual narcissists, but also the wounds that draw us to them, making us vulnerable followers. Because at the core, the spiritual narcissist feeds not on truth, but on the emptiness of those who follow. And you will see that behind every false humility lies a ravenous hunger for control, while genuine spirituality never dominates, humiliates, or demands. It quiets, embraces, and liberates. So breathe deeply, close your eyes for a moment if you can, and allow yourself to hear, as though it were a whisper at dawn, a voice guiding you between the delirium of vanity and the clarity of self-knowledge. The journey begins now. There is something profoundly enigmatic in the way some people turn spiritual search into a spectacle of vanity. They do not shout, they do not demand, they simply float. Their words are gentle, their gestures impeccable. They claim to serve the light, yet behind their gaze, something seeks not to free you, but to bind you in orbit around a supposed wisdom never to be questioned. Spiritual narcissism does not emerge from nothing. It blossoms like a dark orchid, nourished by an injured ego that has learned to cover its wounds with transcendent vocabulary. I am merely a channel, they say. God speaks through me. But beneath it lies a desperate craving to be revered. Illumination for them is not the end of the path, but the stage where they display themselves. They present as keepers of cosmic secrets, as though the universe entrusted them with truths others do not deserve. What should be communion becomes hierarchy. What should be sharing becomes a cult of personality. Here, spirituality grows contaminated. The spiritual narcissist does not renounce ego. they divinize it. And the more they speak of humility, the more they wish to be admired for it. Curiously, such figures do not settle for appearing wise. They need to be unquestionable. Their inner empire rests not upon eternal truths, but upon the fragility of others. They provide ready-made answers to those afraid of asking, and the more you exalt them, the more they smile with false modesty. Have you ever seen someone like this? Someone who insists, "It is not me, it is God in me," yet who cannot accept doubt, criticism, or confrontation. They turn any question into a lack of faith, any disagreement into an attack upon their supposed divinity. What is most disturbing is that many of these figures genuinely believe they are doing good. The self-deception runs deep. They are the ones who cry at retreats, speak of unconditional love, embrace tenderly, but inwardly feel superior to humanity, as though they already stand on higher steps, gazing down with compassion, but always from above. And that gaze from above reveals everything, because the truly enlightened spirit does not rise to make others appear smaller, but becomes small enough to dwell in every heart. It does not shine to blind, but to guide gently. Yet the spiritual narcissist needs an audience, needs to be master, healer, guru. You can feel the difference. The presence of a genuine sage is quiet, nearly invisible, while the false enlightened one is theatrical. Even in silence, they crave to be noticed. In the end, perhaps the most sincere question is this: have I too ever worn that mask? Because the ego is cunning, and when the pain of feeling ordinary grows unbearable, the soul may take refuge in the fantasy of being special, even spiritually special. But no true light exists where admiration is required. Real illumination happens when presence alone is enough, when the other need not know who you are for you to feel complete. Tell me, have you ever sensed that the greatest obstacle lies not outside, but within your own mind? Often the problem is not what happens, but how you interpret, react, and sabotage yourself. There is a practice that helps restructure thought patterns and provides clarity to make conscious choices rooted in logic and inner values. It weaves together philosophy, modern neuroscience, and self-reflection exercises. Many trapped in cycles of anxiety, procrastination, or impulsiveness finally gained mastery over their minds through it. And this reveals something Jung himself would insist upon. No power is more dangerous than that which hides beneath the sacred. For when spirituality becomes a tool of manipulation, it ceases to heal and begins to wound, subtly, almost without visible marks. The spiritual narcissist does not rule by force. They seduce with promises, provide instant answers to deep existential pain, and behind every tender teaching lies the construction of emotional dependency. You begin seeking comfort, and end believing only they can reconnect you with the divine. They do not say, "Trust yourself," but rather, "Trust me. I am the channel." Thus, the sacred becomes private property. What was universal turns exclusive. What was meant to free becomes a cage. It is poison served in a crystal cup. The words taste sweet, but their effect is corrosive. And you do not see the venom, because everything seems like love until you step away. These figures do not merely want respect. They desire your evolution, disguised as gratitude. "Thanks to me, you awakened," they claim. "Without my guidance, you would be lost." And soon, you confuse growth with obedience. Believing evolution means saying yes to everything, swallowing discomfort in silence, avoiding all criticism. Yet there is something deeply false in that forced peace, that toxic positivity which avoids conflict at all cost. It is the mask of cheerfulness, concealing an intolerance of plurality. Jung explained that repressed instincts never disappear, they only disguise themselves. And here, unhealed traumas, buried wounds, and the hunger for control wear the robe of spiritual mission. It is emotional domination, dressed as enlightenment. The spiritual narcissist builds a world where they are the gravitational center. If you disagree, you vibrate low. If you question, you are spiritually undeveloped. Criticism becomes disrespect. Boundaries become betrayal. And thus arises a dogmatic atmosphere where only one voice prevails, where laughter fades, because humor is irreverent, and irreverence threatens hidden authority, where doubt is condemned, for doubt opens cracks in the empire built upon absolute certainties. The manipulation of the sacred is subtle. It is not the shout that dominates you, but the manipulative silence. It is the pious gaze that hides judgment. It is the embrace that suffocates while claiming to heal. And perhaps the most unsettling truth, these people can indeed help. They may provide moments of genuine connection, but that help is tainted by the need to reinforce their identity as savior. They do not help from compassion, but from validation. As Carl Jung taught, authentic love sees the other as an end in themselves, never as a means. The spiritual narcissist loves only so long as they are adored, cares only while being needed to feel indispensable. That is why discernment is vital. For what appears as light does not always come from the soul. Sometimes it is only the ego holding a lantern. And perhaps the great question we must face here is, have I sought the sacred to be free or simply to be accepted? Because every time we trade autonomy for comfort, we become an easy target for those who manipulate the invisible with very human intentions. Not every spiritual narcissist is born upon a pedestal. Often, they are placed there by needy hands, by souls hungry for direction, by people who confuse security with truth. And that is perhaps the most uncomfortable aspect of this conversation. The spiritual narcissist requires a mirror, requires a group that applauds him, that defends him, that nourishes him with reverence, and that group is often us. It is not easy to admit, but how many times have we sought a teacher not out of thirst, but out of fear of taking responsibility for our own path? How many times have we placed the power of our discernment in the hands of someone who speaks firmly and gestures sweetly? Carl Jung said that what we do not face within ourselves appears outside as fate, and in this case, it appears as leadership, a leadership that embodies exactly what our shadow rejects. Hitler, for Jung, was the embodiment of Germany's collective shadow, a wounded, humiliated, and vulnerable nation projected onto the grandiose leader what it wished to deny in itself: its pain, its fear, its feeling of inferiority. And it is no different with modern cults of spirituality. Behind every authoritarian guru stands a community that has chosen him emotionally, not because he is wiser, but because he seems to fill an absence. He offers an identity, and in times of existential emptiness, identity becomes a dangerous balm. See, when we are vulnerable, spiritually needy, emotionally exhausted, we look for someone to tell us what to do, to assure us everything will be fine, to interpret the signs of the universe on our behalf. And that is deeply human, but also profoundly risky, because in that act, we abandon doubt, and without doubt, there is no critical thought. Without critical thought, idolatry is born, and where idolatry exists, there is no room for truth, only for its convenient version. That is the danger of pasteurized spirituality. It offers easy formulas for complex pains. It wraps suffering in pleasant words and sells peace as a product stamped with divine approval. And most unsettling of all, the faithful follower often reproduces the same behavior as the leader. He begins to speak the same, to think the same, to repeat the same judgments disguised as compassion. And whoever disagrees becomes a threat. The us against them emerges, the enlightened tribe against the ignorant. But true spirituality does not create tribes. It dissolves borders. It does not demand worship. It demands presence. It does not invite submission. It invites awareness. Then the question that drifts in the air like smoke is, could it be that without realizing it, I too was part of the machinery that fed that enlightened ego? It is difficult, I know, because admitting it means abandoning the fantasy that we were only victims. But recognizing one's own shadow is the first step toward no longer projecting it onto leaders of clay. There is beauty in spiritual autonomy. Sometimes it is lonely, silent, but profoundly liberating. Because when you begin to truly listen to yourself, without intermediaries, the whisper of your soul finally finds space. And in that space, you discover you no longer need teachers to place you on your knees to make you feel divine. To awaken spiritually does not mean to go out proclaiming that you are awake while pointing at those who still sleep. That is, in fact, only another illusion of the ego trying to appear awakened. True awakening demands a much harder quality to cultivate: discernment. To discern is to know that not everything that appears spiritual is in fact healthy. It is to understand that beautiful words may hide manipulative intentions, and that often what seduces us in supposedly elevated discourse is precisely what we have not yet healed within ourselves. A discerning person idolizes no one. They can learn from teachers, yes, but without surrendering their autonomy. They listen, but filter. They respect, but question. Discernment allows you to realize that genuine spirituality does not demand blind obedience, does not feed on followers, and certainly does not stand on rigid dogmas. Many who seek spiritual growth end up entering communities or following leaders who gradually gain silent power over their lives. And this happens so subtly that we barely notice it. We start only seeking answers. Then we find ourselves asking permission to think differently. When you depend on someone's approval to continue your own inner path, something is wrong. And here lies the most important point. Real spirituality brings you closer to yourself, not to an idealized figure. What truly saves us is not the grand promises of enlightenment that others may proclaim, but rather the intimate and unshakable connection with our own essence. This essence cannot be borrowed, it cannot be imitated, and it cannot be granted by anyone else. It is already within you, waiting to be recognized. You do not need to put on the appearance of being spiritual to reach it, nor must you be accepted or validated by a group to feel at peace with your soul. Authentic spirituality does not ask you to play a role. It asks you to be real. And being real requires discernment. And discernment demands a kind of courage that many people spend their entire lives avoiding. It is the courage to let go of what no longer holds meaning, even if it once gave you comfort. It is the courage to question your own behaviors and dismantle illusions that you may have clung to out of fear. It is the courage to admit that at some point you may have desired admiration for appearing more elevated or more awakened than others. This is not a flaw unique to you. It is a universal temptation. The spiritual ego is subtle, clever, and deceptive. It disguises itself as purity, wisdom, even humility. But beneath its mask lies the hunger for validation, the desire to be seen as special, to stand above the crowd rather than walk among them. Yet when you dare to listen deeply to yourself, when you strip away the masks and face your own truth with raw honesty, the spiritual ego loses its grip. Its tricks weaken, and what remains is something far more profound: the authentic search for meaning, for connection, for freedom. Awakening with discernment is not about reaching some fixed destination. It is about remembering that there is no rigid map for the soul. There are signs, encounters, teachers, but ultimately, the path is yours alone, and no one can walk it for you. The greatest trap of modern spirituality may not be found in false gurus or exploitative leaders, but in our own urgency to have someone else tell us who we are. In our rush to belong, in our longing for clarity, we often abandon the most sacred gift we have: discernment. If you are hearing these words now, it is because something inside you still longs for truth. A truth that is quiet, unpolished, and free from spectacle. A truth that does not care for stages or audiences, that does not hunger for applause, but that simply exists in the intimacy of your being. It is a truth that does not seek to win arguments or collect followers, but that lives in silence, waiting to be felt, rather than displayed. The so-called spiritual narcissist is not just an external figure to be identified. It is also a shadow within ourselves. It is the voice that whispers of being too unique to belong, of wanting to save others, while secretly resisting the call to face our own wounds. This is why Carl Jung often reminded us that the greatest spiritual awakening is not about escaping into higher realms or losing ourselves in fantasies of ascension. Instead, it is about descending into our humanity, into our doubts, into the laughter that heals, into the pain that teaches, into the ordinary moments where presence is born. Enlightenment, in Jung's view, is not the radiant appearance of perfection. It is the humble act of living with integrity, with honesty, and with compassion. The highest state of consciousness is not in appearing enlightened. It is in living authentically, without disguises, without pretensions, and without fear of imperfection. In the end, the spiritual journey does not ask you to follow anyone. It asks you to walk with yourself, feet stained by the earth, heart overflowing with questions, eyes open to mysteries that cannot be captured by reason, but can only be felt in the depth of your being. The one who has truly awakened does not want disciples. They do not crave to be followed. They only wish that you awaken as well, that you too find your own essence. Carl Jung once told a story of a man who seemed almost invisible. He wore no distinctive clothing, he did not raise his voice, and he never quoted the words of famous masters. Yet, whenever he spoke, the room fell into silence. His words were not elaborate, they were simple. But within their simplicity lived an undeniable presence, a presence that made those who listened feel seen, not judged, not measured, but deeply recognized. At the end of one such gathering, someone asked him, "What is your spiritual path?" He smiled softly, with eyes that carried both kindness and clarity, and answered, "My path is to never forget that I am only one among many." That answer remained with Jung for years, because it captured a truth that no book or ritual could fully convey. No matter how much we study, no matter how much we meditate, no matter how much we try to appear evolved, if we cannot meet another human being as an equal, with empathy, with humility, with genuine presence, then all we are doing is dressing another form of ego in spiritual robes. This ego may carry incense, chant sacred words, or speak of enlightenment, but at its core, it is still hungry for recognition, still seeking to be above others, rather than beside them. If you have reached this moment, I want to thank you, not for listening to these words, but for daring to look inward, for accepting a descent that is not always comfortable, but is always necessary. Your very presence here is proof that there are souls who wish to go beyond appearances, beyond empty performances, beyond the idolatry of false masters. Souls who long for a spirituality that does not dominate, does not demand admiration, does not hide behind masks, but simply breathes through the way you live each day. And so, the invitation is this: to live a spirituality that is not staged, not forced, not adorned with glitter, but one that is alive in your silence, alive in your laughter, alive in your ability to love, to doubt, to listen, and to simply be. A spirituality that is not about ascending above life, but about entering fully into it, with all its chaos, beauty, and imperfection. That is where your essence waits. That is where truth lives. And that is where your soul, at last, can rest in freedom. If these words resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next reflection, and keep walking this path of inner truth. Remember what Carl Jung taught us. The highest form of awakening is not to appear enlightened, but to live with humility, authenticity, and a heart open to the mystery of life. There are moments in life when someone walks in and everything changes. Not because they stay forever, not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because in the very first instant, they awaken something dormant within you. It's not logical. It doesn't follow rules. It's a strange feeling, somewhere between the familiar and the unreachable, between excitement and frustration, between the longing to move forward and the painful certainty that you can't. This person is not just anyone. They're not a passing fling or a casual connection. No, this is someone who seems to read your soul without even trying. They appear at a time when you thought everything was under control, when life felt predictable, and suddenly it isn't. Their presence shakes your foundations. What you thought was healed begins to ache again. What you believed was over becomes an open wound. Carl Jung once said that there are no coincidences. What we often call chance is, in truth, the way the soul encounters exactly what it needs in order to evolve. Seen through this lens, that person who disrupts your emotional stability isn't a mistake. They're a message, a call, a sign. But that call doesn't always bring comfort. Sometimes it hurts, deeply, because you realize you can't be with them. There are obstacles, distances, impossible differences. Life seems to offer you something extraordinary, only to slam the door shut before you can reach it. And that's when the real question begins to echo through your mind and heart. Why would the universe show me something so powerful, so meaningful, so real, if I can't have it? Most people respond with anger, denial, or grief. And that makes sense because the soul recognizes that connection as something sacred. But Jung challenges us to go beyond the romantic narrative. He invites us to understand that not everything that touches our soul is meant to stay. Sometimes it came only to show, to reflect, to awaken. That impossible person might have shown up to reveal what you truly long for, what remains unhealed, what part of yourself you had long forgotten. They become a mirror, one you can't ignore, a mirror that neither flatters nor destroys you, but simply exposes you. And in that exposure, something profound is revealed, because what you thought you were seeking in the other person is actually what your soul is yearning to find within yourself. Jung said it clearly: what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. So perhaps the real question is not, why can't I be with this person? But what part of me is being called to awaken through this encounter? Because the universe is not playing games. It isn't punishing you. It's not being cruel. The universe arranges encounters that your mind cannot understand, but that your soul has secretly begged for. And so, the journey begins. But it's not a journey toward the other person. It's a journey toward yourself. Carl Jung devoted much of his work to one of the most powerful concepts in psychology: the shadow, the hidden part of our psyche, where all that we reject, suppress, or fear lives. The shadow never vanishes. It waits in the depths, silently, until the right moment comes. And often, it reveals itself not from within, but through the presence of someone else. That person who comes into your life and unravels you, who stirs emotions you didn't know you were capable of feeling, who touches parts of you that no one else has ever touched. They are often a direct reflection of your own shadow. It's not coincidence, it's symbolism. Jung called it projection. You see in the other what you have not yet been able to see in yourself. When someone shows up and causes a storm of fascination and pain, you are standing in front of an emotional mirror. Maybe that person has a confidence you crave. Maybe they embody a freedom you've suppressed, or an emotional intensity you've taught yourself to hide. And in that moment, your soul is activated, not by what the other person does, but by what they reflect back to you. And this is where things get deeper, because it's not about a tragic love story. It's about a confrontation with the parts of you that have been buried for years. Jung believed that meaningful encounters are never random. They are archetypes in motion, symbolic expressions of internal processes that you haven't yet understood. So, when someone you cannot be with walks into your life and shakes your entire world, it's very likely you're standing before an archetype of transformation. And transformation is rarely comfortable. It demands that you face what you don't want to see. It brings up your need for approval, your fear of abandonment, your tendency to search outside yourself for what you failed to nurture within. And this is perhaps the most important truth of all. You cannot be with that person, not because something is broken, but because you are not yet able to hold the energy that connection activates in you. It is a painful paradox. Your soul recognizes something sacred, but your ego is not ready to integrate it. And that tension breaks you open. You chase it. You try to forget it. You fall apart. But Jung offers another path, the path of consciousness. It's not about clinging or dramatizing. It's about seeing clearly. He invites us to observe the connection without idealizing it, to feel the pain without turning it into a tragedy, to understand that the appearance of that person in our lives is not a punishment or a loss, but a calling, a message, a moment designed to wake us up. Because it's precisely when we stop resisting the impossibility of a relationship that the true alchemy begins. That's when transformation starts to unfold, quietly, from within. You begin to understand that this person didn't come into your life to complete you. They came to reveal something vital, something long buried. And that revelation, even if it hurts, even if it tears something open inside you, is the first step toward your liberation. When someone affects us deeply, it's rarely about what they do. It's about what they awaken in us. According to Jung, these people function like emotional mirrors. They reflect hidden corners of our psyche, unhealed wounds, suppressed desires, forgotten pain, and they don't do this intentionally. They simply exist, and their presence alone is enough to activate those sleeping parts of ourselves. Maybe this person makes you feel alive for the first time in years. Maybe you feel seen, as if your soul is being witnessed. Maybe the connection feels intense, electric, destined. But here's the truth. Intensity is not always proof of true love. More often than not, it's a sign of something deeper, a dormant wound that has finally been touched. Emotional wounds often form in childhood, in moments when we lacked the love, the safety, the validation we needed most. And because we were too young to process that pain, we tucked it away. We buried it in the shadows of our unconscious, where it remained, silent, but far from inactive. Then, years later, seemingly out of nowhere, someone appears, someone with whom you cannot be, but who seems custom-designed to reopen that wound. Why does this happen? Because the soul is not interested in comfort. It's interested in healing. And in order to heal, we must first remember. And in order to remember, something or someone must awaken that dormant memory. Jung explained that the unconscious does not speak in logic or words. It speaks through symbols, through emotions, through synchronicities. And often, an impossible love becomes one of the most powerful languages the unconscious can use to say, "Look here, something inside you is asking to be seen." So the question is not, how do I forget this person? The real question is, what part of me is crying out for recognition? Maybe it's the part that always prioritized others over itself. Maybe it's the part that never felt enough. Or maybe it's the part that learned to associate love with absence, struggle, or sacrifice. And that person, that impossible love, comes to represent all of that. A promise of something you were conditioned to believe you could never have. Or a symbolic repetition of old, unresolved family dynamics that your psyche is now begging you to revisit and integrate. Jung spoke of individuation as a path toward wholeness, a journey in which fragmented parts of the psyche are reintegrated into a more conscious self. And very often, that journey doesn't begin with clarity or peace. It begins with a rupture, with a crisis, with a love that cannot be. Because it's precisely when the soul meets its most painful reflection that it also meets its greatest potential for transformation. Not by running away, not by clinging, but by staying with the experience, feeling it, observing it, without judgment. The true purpose of this person is not to stay with you. Their purpose is to help you stay with yourself, to help you touch that wound with compassion, to show you that what you've been looking for in others has always lived within you. And when you start doing that, when you begin to truly stay with yourself, something profound shifts. You no longer need the other person to stay, because for the first time, you are staying. You are showing up for yourself. From Jung's deep perspective, the connections that shake us the most are never mistakes. They are never coincidences. They are manifestations of the soul trying to become whole. And sometimes, wholeness doesn't come through union. It comes through separation, through heartbreak, through letting go. When someone bursts into your life, takes over your thoughts, ignites your emotions, and yet remains unreachable, the ego suffers. Because the ego wants to possess. It wants to control. It wants to fix. But the soul, no, the soul has a different agenda. The soul doesn't want to control. It wants to expand. It wants to grow. And for that, it needs experiences that challenge the known, that break the mold, that force us to look deeper than we ever dared. That someone you cannot be with, that impossibility, is not an error in your story. It is the rupture of your old script, a disruption of everything you thought love was supposed to look like. They don't fit into your plans. They don't follow your timing, but they leave a mark, a trace. And in that trace, your transformation begins. Jung said that there are moments when the soul speaks so loudly it can no longer be ignored. One of those moments is when love arrives in the form of impossibility. Because in that moment, the soul asks, did you really believe you knew what love is? Are you willing to look beneath desire? Can you endure the pain of not having without losing yourself? That's the true initiation. And while most people run, rationalize, minimize, distract, some choose to stay. Not in the relationship, but in the emotional process. And those who stay, those who dare to sit in the fire, find a door. Not a door to the other person, but a door to themselves. Impossibility is an alchemical fire. It burns illusions. It melts projections. It destroys fantasy. And what's left behind is a raw, luminous truth, one that only emerges when the false self dissolves. That thing you most long for in the other, it's something your own soul is trying to birth in you. That person didn't come to give it to you. They came to remind you. They came to awaken the inner quest, to spark a journey back to your essence. And here lies the beautiful paradox. The more you accept that you cannot be with them, the closer you come to yourself. The less you fight to control the bond, the more profound the lesson becomes. Because the soul doesn't need the other to stay. The soul needs you to awaken. And sometimes it uses love as bait. A love that can't be fulfilled, to pull you deeper, to strip you bare, to bring you home. So instead of asking, why can't I be with them? Maybe the question becomes, what part of me is being reborn through this experience? What am I learning about my ability to love without possessing? What is the universe trying to show me that I can't see from the limited view of my ego? The answers don't always come quickly, but if you can stay with the discomfort, if you can resist the urge to escape, to numb, to forget, you'll see. That person didn't come to show you what you lack. They came to show you what's already inside of you, waiting to be seen, honored, and embraced. There is something deeply transformative in loving without obtaining, in feeling without possessing, in desiring without needing to control. And sometimes it is the most impossible of loves that lead us to the most profound encounter of all, the one with ourselves. Carl Jung knew it. These kinds of experiences shake us to our core. They wake us up, pulling us out of our emotional numbness. They place us face to face with the raw mystery of being human, with an intensity that few things in life ever achieve. Because when you can't have that person, you also can't run from yourself. Deep down, impossible love is a catalyst. It didn't come to complete your love story. It came to dismantle it. It came to take away the script you were holding on to show you that everything you thought you needed from the other was actually a call inward, a mirror, a sacred disruption. Many people try to shut down these stories too quickly. They put a label on them. It wasn't meant to be. They didn't love me. It didn't work out. And yes, that might be true on the surface. But if you stop there, you miss the most important gift. And that gift isn't in how the story ends. It's in what it awakens within you. Jung spoke of archetypes as the bridges between the conscious and the unconscious. And these intense connections, even the brief, impossible, or contradictory ones, are deeply archetypal. They activate inner figures in us: the wounded lover, the abandoned child, the savior, the pursuer, the unreachable ideal. And all of them are parts of you. Every one of them belongs to your psyche. The person you can't be with functions like a living symbol, a trigger for all these sleeping aspects of yourself that are now longing to be seen, to be felt, to be known. You're not obsessed with that person. You're under a spell, captivated by what they represent. And that is the space that needs your exploration. That's where the real inner work begins. What parts of yourself have you projected onto them? What emotions are you only willing to feel when that person is around? What pieces of your identity have been waiting for someone else to choose them? And why do you feel that only this person could ever do that? When you begin to look from that angle, everything shifts. It's no longer about forgetting or moving on. It's about integration, about allowing this experience to reshape you, about letting the pain turn into clarity, letting the longing become a compass pointing inward. And that's when impossibility stops feeling like punishment and starts revealing its true purpose: revelation. You're no longer stuck in the waiting. You've returned to yourself. You're growing from within now. You're remembering that you never truly needed someone else to give you what you hadn't yet given yourself. The universe didn't make a mistake by sending you that person. It knew you wouldn't be able to keep them, but it also knew that through that very impossibility, you'd finally come home to yourself. That's the paradox of sacred encounters. They're not meant to last. They're meant to awaken. And there comes a moment in these stories when the pain is still there, but something inside you has transformed. You no longer beg. You no longer chase. You no longer wait. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you now understand what that encounter came to reveal. Your soul had been crying out to be seen, and the universe, through that impossible person, didn't deny you love. It showed you all the places where you weren't loving yourself. It uncovered your wounds disguised as desire. It mirrored your fears through absence. It brought you to your knees so that you would stop searching outside and start building something real inside. And then comes that moment of profound clarity, when you understand that this was never about getting the other person to change, to return, or to choose you. It was about you choosing yourself, you staying, you holding yourself fully, even in your neediness, in your craving, in your emptiness, loving without clinging, desiring without control, surrendering to the lesson hidden in the ache. Because that's where the real transformation happens. Carl Jung spoke of the self as the totality of the psyche, the integration of light and shadow, desire and renunciation, love and pain. To Jung, the self is not just the conscious identity we cling to, but the deeper wholeness that we uncover when we confront all that we are, even the parts we've learned to deny. And often, it's the impossible relationships, the ones that break us open, that guide us more directly to this place of truth. These experiences don't come to destroy us. They come to tear away the illusions and rebuild us from a space more authentic, more grounded in who we really are. When we stop clinging to the belief that a certain person had to stay in our lives forever, something unexpected begins to emerge. It's not indifference or numbness. It's a quiet peace, a strange sense of calm, a kind of mature acceptance. This doesn't mean the feelings are gone. It means that you've begun to understand. You've understood that not everything that touches your soul is meant to remain in your life. Some people arrive not to stay, but to awaken a memory, to stir something you had long forgotten, to open a space within yourself that only you can inhabit. And in the end, you realize the real relationship was never about that other person. It was always about you. They were the mirror, the catalyst, the symbol. The true journey has always been inward. And when you can hold love without trying to own it, you become free. When you can feel gratitude for what never came to pass, you become wise. When you can release someone without closing your heart, you become whole. That's when it hits you. The universe didn't make a mistake. That person, with all their limitations and all the impossibility they brought, was a gift, a teacher, a spark of light that illuminated the darkest corners of your emotional night. And though they didn't stay, they left behind something eternal, a part of yourself that had been dormant, now awakened, a deeper version of you finally emerging into the light. If this message touched something deep within you, if it stirred emotions you hadn't allowed yourself to feel in a long time, then don't let it fade into the background noise of your day. You didn't arrive here by accident. That ache, that question, that trembling in your chest, it's your soul responding. So take a breath, let it in, and if you're ready to keep digging, to keep unraveling what has been hidden, to keep waking up, then this is your place. Subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell. Not because it's what everyone says, but because something inside you already knows this journey is far from over. It's just beginning. And we're not here to offer you pretty words or easy answers. We're here to explore the truths that hurt but heal, the wounds that break but free. This space is for the ones who dare to feel, even when it burns, for the ones who are tired of pretending, for the ones who want to transform rather than just cope. Subscribe and allow this channel to be your mirror, your challenge, your companion. Because the work of the soul is not done in isolation. It's done in reflection, in community, in brave silence and radical honesty. And don't forget to turn on that bell icon so you don't miss what might be the exact message you need to hear, right when your soul is ready to receive it. This isn't entertainment. This is awakening. Let's walk it together. A 70-year-old man wakes up every morning at 5 a.m., not because he has somewhere to be, not because someone is waiting for him. He's long past the age of alarms, deadlines, or urgent responsibilities. He rises from bed quietly, makes himself a warm drink, and walks slowly to his favorite chair by the window. He sits there in silence and watches the sun rise, every day without fail, for exactly 15 minutes. No phone, no television, just him and the sky. His neighbors whisper that he's eccentric. His family tells him he should be traveling, resting, enjoying retirement properly. But they don't understand. What this man has uncovered is something most people spend their entire lives chasing without ever really finding: a deeper truth about time itself. We think of time as a schedule, a number, a resource. But for this man, time has become something else entirely. He's come to realize, through years of quiet observation, that the way we relate to time is one of the greatest illusions of modern life. And behind that illusion is a hidden wisdom, one that Carl Jung once touched on with great clarity: that time, as we commonly understand it, is not real in the way we assume. There is a paradox in how humans experience time. In childhood and early adulthood, we're in a rush. We want to grow up, skip ahead, reach the next milestone. We dream of finishing school, getting a job, finding love, reaching the weekend. But then something strange happens, often without us even noticing. At some point, we start pleading for time to slow down. We begin to miss the moments we once wished away. That shift is not about nostalgia or getting old. It's something much deeper. It's the soul waking up. Carl Jung would say that this change is not random. It's part of a larger, inner process, the awakening of consciousness. When we are young, we're ruled by the ego and its endless chase for more. But eventually, if we're lucky, we start to sense that we've been running in circles, that the life we were told to want might not be the life we truly need. And that's where time begins to feel different. Our culture tells us to master time, to be more productive, more efficient, more organized. We read books on time management, download apps to optimize every minute, and plan our days down to the second. We talk about time like it's currency, saving it, wasting it, investing it. But Jung saw through all of this. He understood that the real crisis isn't that we have too little time. It's that we've lost connection to what time really is. Because time is not a clock. It's not the ticking of a watch or the movement of the sun across the sky. Time is your awareness, your presence, your ability to be here now fully. And when you start paying attention to this, really paying attention, you'll notice something fascinating. Time stretches. It contracts. It flows differently depending on your state of mind. 1 hour can vanish like smoke when you're with someone you love. The same hour can feel endless when you're stuck in a place you don't want to be. A weekend can feel like a lifetime if you're deeply present, and a year can disappear in a blur if you're just going through the motions. This elasticity of time isn't a trick of the brain. It's a clue. It tells us that real time, lived time, doesn't follow the rules we think it does. It follows the rhythm of the soul. Imagine this. 2 people, both 40 years old. One has lived each day awake, fully engaged, choosing where to place their energy. The other has coasted through decades, doing what was expected, putting off their dreams, waiting for someday. Chronologically, they are the same age, but in lived experience, they are worlds apart. Jung believed that not all years are equal. 1 year of conscious living is worth more than 10 years of sleepwalking through life. The difference isn't in how long you've been alive. It's in how deeply you've participated in your own existence. It's in how present you've been, how many moments you've actually tasted, felt, and inhabited. And that's why the man at the window wakes up at 5 a.m. Not because he has to, but because he wants to witness life in its rawest, most unfiltered form. Because in those 15 minutes, watching the sky shift from darkness to light, he experiences something pure, something sacred. He's not watching time pass. He's meeting it face to face. When we begin to approach time this way, everything changes. The stress to be constantly productive fades. The obsession with the future softens. We no longer rush through the present to get somewhere else. We begin to understand that life isn't happening later. It's happening now. And every moment we're not present for is a moment lost forever. So pause. Breathe. Consider your own relationship with time. How much of your day is truly lived, not just passed through? How often are you present with the people you love, with your own thoughts, with the sky outside your window? The man watching the sunrise has found a rhythm that modern life has buried. And maybe, if we're willing to listen, not with our ears, but with our hearts, we can find it too. Not by doing more, but by being more aware, more open, more alive. Because in the end, time is not something outside of us. It's something we become. When do you feel time slows down for you? When does it seem to speed up? What patterns arise when you observe these moments honestly? The answers to these questions reveal something profound. Your true values, not the ones you claim to have, but the ones you are actually living. Time expands when we align with what truly matters to us, and it contracts when we become disconnected from our authentic purpose. Modern society has developed a deeply distorted relationship with time, one that Carl Jung would undoubtedly find absurd. We live under the illusion that we can multiply time by doing more things at once, that we can save it by becoming more efficient, or that we can recover it by working longer hours or moving faster. But this way of thinking comes from a mistaken view of what it means to be alive. We treat time as if it were an engineering problem, something to be controlled or optimized, rather than recognizing it as the very medium through which we experience existence. It's like trying to optimize love or manage beauty. These are things that resist being confined to formulas. And because of that confusion, many people reach the end of their lives having been hyper-efficient, yet deeply unfulfilled. They gained time, but lost meaning. They perfected the means, but forgot the ends. Look closely at the rhythm around you, at the conversations you overhear every day. How many revolve around being busy? How many people use the word busy as if it meant important or valuable? This modern equation, busy equals worthy, is one of the most expensive confusions of our time. And the hardest truth to accept is that many of us fill our time not because what we do has real value, but because we don't know how to face silence, the void, the dizziness we feel when we meet ourselves in the present moment. Carl Jung spoke clearly about this. Nothing truly belongs to us except time. Yet that is precisely what we hand over to others with terrifying speed. We give it away to bosses who disrespect our boundaries, to empty social obligations, to distractions that numb us, to anxieties about things we can't control. And that speaks volumes about our human condition. We prefer the stress of being overloaded to the responsibility of consciously choosing how we want to live. We'd rather complain about not having time than face the real question, what do I want time for? Truly, because that's where everything begins. That's where our understanding of time becomes real. Time is not something we have. It's something we are. It's not a possession. It's our very mode of being. We are time incarnate, consciousness unfolding moment by moment, breathing life into each instant. And when we truly grasp this, it transforms the way we inhabit the world. Each moment becomes a chance to be who we consciously choose to be. There is no distance between me and time. There is only pure presence manifesting now. Carl Jung understood this deeply. That's why he believed every day holds the potential of a complete life, not as a poetic metaphor, but as lived reality. Each day contains birth, growth, fullness, and death. Every day can be a whole existence if we live it with total awareness. People who understand this don't postpone their happiness, their love, or their dreams. They aren't waiting for more time to finally do what matters. They realize the moment to act is this one, right now. This conversation, this decision, this breath. This is where life is happening fully. Take a moment to reflect. How many times have you postponed meaningful experiences, waiting for the right time? How often have you said, "When I finish this, when I have more time, when the kids grow up, when I retire"? All those whens are part of a common illusion. The belief that a perfect future will arrive, where we'll finally have permission to truly live. But the truth, however painful, is that this perfect future never comes. There will always be new excuses to keep waiting. And meanwhile, life, the only one we get, is slipping through our fingers in the very present we're ignoring. Pause and look at how you relate to all this. What parts of a meaningful life are you putting off? What important conversations are you avoiding? What experiences are you saving for someday? Truly understanding time doesn't erase our delays because we become impulsive, but because we realize something far deeper. The present is the only place where life truly unfolds. According to Carl Jung, transforming our relationship with time doesn't require complex methods or sophisticated techniques. What it demands is a radical shift in awareness, a move from measuring life by quantity to living it by quality. We must replace the obsession with efficiency with an authentic search for presence. Shift constant activity into a clear sense of purpose. And the first step is to develop what Jung might call temporal awareness, the capacity to honestly and clearly observe how we're investing our life, moment by moment. It's not about judging everything we do. It's about learning to pay deeper attention to where our energy goes and why. There's a simple yet powerful practice that can change everything. Before committing to any activity, pause and ask yourself one concrete question. Does this deserve a piece of my life? Not, do I have time for this? The real question is this worth a fragment of my existence? The difference between those two questions is vast. The first treats time as something external, like money to be managed. The second recognizes that time is your very life, and every commitment is an existential decision about how your story unfolds. From this perspective, many of the things we do out of habit or social pressure lose their meaning. Seriously, does that meeting really need your conscious presence? Does that show you watch on autopilot each night enrich your sense of being alive? Does that same old conversation add anything to your existence? And remember, this isn't about becoming a monk who renounces all pleasures and human connections. It's about choosing from clarity, from a place where you know what truly matters to you, and you consciously decide how to invest the most precious currency you possess, your presence. The second essential aspect is learning to fully inhabit the present moment. It doesn't matter which activity you choose. If you decide to wash the dishes, do it with full attention. If you choose to spend time with a friend, let your mind be nowhere else. If you're working on a project, let your engagement be total. Because when we are fully present, even the most mundane tasks are transformed, not by what we do, but by the quality of awareness we bring to the moment. And when someone truly understands this, their life begins to change, quietly but radically. What's interesting is that they may not change what they do. They may keep the same job, the same relationships, the same responsibilities, but something deep transforms in the way they live it. First, that chronic feeling of not having enough time disappears, not because they magically gain more hours in a day, but because every hour is lived so intensely that it becomes enough. The anxiety about time simply dissolves when we realize we always have exactly the time we need to fully live this moment. Second, our decisions become far clearer. when every choice is filtered through the question, does this deserve part of my life? Our priorities naturally rearrange. The superficial falls away effortlessly. What truly matters becomes as clear as crystal. Third, our relationships deepen in incredible ways. Because when we're genuinely present with others, not mentally stuck in the past or anticipating the future, a type of connection emerges that transforms. Others feel it. They sense our attention and respond with more authenticity, more openness. And finally, a peace arises that depends on nothing external. A peace that comes from knowing we're living authentically, that we're not postponing what's important, that every day we live contains a real possibility of wholeness. This transformation doesn't eliminate life's challenges, but it deeply changes the way we relate to them. Problems still show up, responsibilities still remain, difficulties still arise, but we no longer react from the anxiety of time. We respond from presence, from a place of focused calm. Now imagine what it would be like to live each day with that kind of temporal awareness. To wake up each morning, not with the panic of all you have to do, but with the question, how do I want to invest my life today? If every conversation became a chance for real connection, not just something to get through before moving on to the next thing. Reflect. When was the last time you lived like that? When did time feel abundant? Not because you had more hours, but because you were fully engaged with what you were living. Those moments weren't accidents. They were glimpses of what life can be when you understand the real value of time. Throughout this entire journey, we haven't talked about time management. What we've explored is something far deeper, an existential revolution, an awakening, a clear realization that you don't have time. You are time. Consciousness unfolding second by second in the experience of being alive. And Carl Jung, with his timeless insight, left us with a truth we should never forget. Life is not measured in years, but in moments of authentic presence. It's not the amount of time that defines a fulfilled life. It's the quality of awareness with which we inhabit each instant. Understanding this changes everything, because each moment we live becomes a complete opportunity to be who we truly choose to be. And this shift doesn't demand a total transformation of our external circumstances. What it does require is a profound change in the way we are present in the world, a move from distraction to focus, from postponing life to actually living it, from anxiety to the peace of knowing we are already living authentically. There comes a moment, brief, fleeting, and yet profoundly transformative, when the veil of illusion is lifted. That illusion is the belief in someday. Someday when things are perfect. Someday when I feel ready. Someday when life aligns just right. But here's the radical truth. Someday doesn't exist. It's a myth we cling to, a ghost we chase through the corridors of time. And in that endless chase, we overlook the only thing that has ever truly belonged to us. This moment, right now, this sudden awakening, no matter how small, breaks the invisible chains of that illusion. It tears apart the fantasy of a perfect future and brings us face to face with the real gift we've been given, the present. Yes, this very moment, imperfect and raw, filled with limitations and uncertainties, is the only fertile ground where life genuinely unfolds. And that, perhaps, is the most liberating truth a soul can encounter. Carl Jung often spoke of the psyche's deep yearning to return to the self, to wholeness, to integration. And the path back to the self does not lie in some distant future. It begins here, now, in how we breathe, in how we listen, in how we choose to show up fully for each breath, each word, each step. When we begin to grasp time in its true form, not as a linear path to something better, but as a sacred container for being, we stop measuring life by how much time we have and begin to value how deeply we inhabit the time we've been given. Meaning does not reside in the future. It doesn't wait for us in a perfect job, in a distant goal, or in a new version of ourselves. It is woven into the fabric of this exact second. It's in the smile you almost missed, the silence you rushed through, the stillness you ignored. Joy doesn't require more time. Love doesn't ask us to wait. And purpose doesn't come with a deadline. Everything you are seeking is already here, within the structure of now. This realization doesn't mean we stop growing or striving. It doesn't mark the end of our inner work. Quite the opposite. It's the beginning of a deeper journey, a journey into presence, into awareness, into the sacred art of truly dwelling in the moment, not as a stepping stone, but as the destination itself. When we start living as if each day were a complete lifetime, something profound shifts. We stop surviving and start experiencing. We stop hoping for a future that feels real and start realizing that reality is already here, waiting to be embraced. Because when our story nears its end, when the chapters begin to close and the final lines are written, what will remain? Not how much time we had, but how fully we lived within it. Not how long we were here, but how deeply we allowed ourselves to feel, to connect, to be. In the space between simply having time and inhabiting time lies the wisdom of a life truly lived. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt completely present? When did the world seem to slow down because you were fully there, not thinking about tomorrow, not regretting yesterday, just here, completely immersed in the now? That moment, however brief, was sacred, and it holds a key to something eternal. If you've had one of those experiences of expanded time, of pure presence, I invite you to share it. Someone else may read your story and recognize their own. Your words might become the mirror someone needs to see their life more clearly. Never underestimate the healing power of shared presence. And if this message stirred something within you, something subtle, something quiet, but undeniably alive, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to remember the truth they've always known deep down. That this moment is enough, that they are enough, that life, in all its imperfections, is still sacred ground. Wherever I am when you hear this, know that I will be grateful with all my heart and soul, and know that what we offer in presence always returns to us in some mysterious, luminous form. Life has a way of echoing back what we give to it, especially when we give from a place of truth. The next video dives deeper into the revelations of Carl Jung, into the symbols, the dreams, and the hidden wisdom that lives inside each of us. Subscribe, turn on the bell. Don't miss what's coming next. These are not just teachings, they are invitations to awaken, to return, to remember who you are beneath the noise. Before you go, I want to ask, what did you feel while hearing these words? Where have you been searching for peace lately? Your answer matters. It really does. You matter, and your presence in this journey makes all the difference. We're not alone in this. We're walking this inner path together, one moment at a time. And believe me, this is just the beginning. See you soon. Carl Jung once said that within each of us exists a mystery so deep that when we explore it, we don't just find answers, we uncover the key to transforming our lives. Yet so often, we look outward for solutions. We search for validation, for love, for purpose in the external world, hoping to find something or someone that will make us feel whole. But Jung challenges us to shift our perspective. He invites us to turn inward. Why do so many of us feel lost, disconnected, or unfulfilled? It's not because the world has failed us. It's because we have stopped listening to ourselves. We have stopped prioritizing our own needs, our own truths, and our most authentic essence. Think about it. How many times have you placed the needs of others above your own? Perhaps in a relationship, at work, or even among friends and family. Little by little, you have dimmed your own light, molding yourself to fit expectations that may not even align with your own values. And while you do this, something deep inside you whispers, "When will it be my turn?" Jung tells us that this whisper is not just a fleeting thought. It is a call from your unconscious. It is your true self, demanding attention, urging you to recognize its importance. Real healing cannot come from external sources. No matter how much you seek love, validation, or approval from others, if you haven't given that love to yourself first, you will always feel an emptiness. But that emptiness is not a flaw. It is a signal. It is your unconscious telling you that it's time for change. It's time to look inward, to confront the parts of yourself that you have ignored or repressed for so long. Perhaps you have felt this call in moments of crisis, a breakup, a job that no longer fulfills you, a constant sense of emotional exhaustion. These moments, though painful, are opportunities. Jung believed that the unconscious never abandons us. It constantly sends us signals, and those signals often arrive in the form of chaos. But chaos is not something to fear. It is a message. It is a clear sign that something in your life is not aligned with your true self. When you prioritize others over yourself, you are sending a message to the universe and to your own unconscious that you do not consider yourself valuable enough. But Jung reminds us that our relationship with ourselves defines everything else. If you do not treat yourself with love, respect, and care, how can you expect the world to do so? The first step toward change is to listen. Listen to that discomfort, that dissatisfaction. Stop trying to silence it with external distractions and allow yourself to feel it, to understand it. Because beneath that discomfort lies a truth waiting to be discovered, the truth of who you really are. And to reach that truth, you must prioritize yourself. You must make yourself an absolute priority. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if you truly prioritized yourself. If every decision you made, from the smallest to the most significant, aligned with what you truly need, what makes you feel alive. For many, this might seem like an impossible dream, but Jung shows us that it is not only possible, it is essential for our healing and growth. The problem is that we have been conditioned to believe that prioritizing ourselves is selfish. We were taught that taking care of others, sacrificing our desires, and always putting others first is the right thing to do. And while helping others is noble, doing so at the expense of our essence leaves us empty. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating all parts of ourselves, including those we suppress. And often, the part we suppress the most is the one crying out for attention, for self-love. That internal disconnection does not disappear simply because we ignore it. It manifests in other ways, in draining relationships, in jobs that leave us unfulfilled, in that constant feeling that something is missing. and the most painful truth? The more you ignore your true self, the more intense that emptiness becomes. Jung said that there is no greater burden than living a life that is not authentic. To prioritize yourself means to make peace with your shadows. It means to look at those parts of yourself that make you uncomfortable, that scare you, and understand that they are not your enemies. They are simply parts of you that need to be acknowledged. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will be with you every step of your life is yourself. And if you do not prioritize yourself, who will? Many people believe that prioritizing themselves means saying no to others. But that's not true. Prioritizing yourself means saying yes to you. It means giving yourself permission to rest when you need to pursue your dreams, to surround yourself with people who truly value you. It means understanding that your time, your energy, and your love are valuable and should not be wasted on things or people that do not resonate with you. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you truly are. This process does not happen automatically. It requires intention, effort, and above all, courage. Because prioritizing yourself will not always be easy. There will be people who don't understand, who may even be upset that you are no longer putting their needs above your own. But Jung reminds us that this is the price of authenticity. And while it may be difficult, it is also incredibly liberating. When you decide to prioritize yourself, something incredible begins to happen. It's as if the universe, seeing your decision to value yourself, starts to respond differently. The people who drained you begin to fade away, and in their place, new people appear. People who inspire you, who support you, who vibrate at the same frequency as you. This is not a coincidence. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, those seemingly random yet profoundly meaningful events that occur when you are aligned with yourself. Synchronicity is not just a coincidence, it is a confirmation that you are on the right path. But to reach this point, you must be brutally honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what relationships, habits, or beliefs are blocking my growth? What am I holding on to that no longer resonates with me? These are not easy questions to answer. In fact, they can be deeply uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it first. And to accept something, we must first confront it." One of the greatest obstacles we face is the fear of letting go. We cling to what is familiar, even if it hurts us, because the unknown terrifies us. But Jung taught that true growth only happens when we dare to explore those unknowns within ourselves. That fear you feel is not a signal to stop. It is an invitation to move forward. Because on the other side of that fear is the version of yourself that you have always longed to become. When you begin to prioritize yourself, you do more than just heal your inner wounds. You shift the very dynamics of your relationships. You stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop surrounding yourself with people who do not value your time and energy. And most importantly, you start setting boundaries. Because as Jung said, we cannot give to others what we do not give to ourselves. If you do not take care of yourself, if you do not love yourself, how can you expect to care for and love others in an authentic way? Prioritizing yourself also means reconnecting with your dreams. Maybe you have spent years chasing goals that were never truly yours, expectations placed upon you by your parents, by society, by your friends. But now you have the opportunity to pause and ask yourself, what do I truly want? What makes me feel alive? Jung reminds us that life has meaning when we live in alignment with our essence, and that essence can only be defined by you. This journey is not linear. There will be days when you feel inspired, as if everything is falling into place. But there will also be days when you doubt yourself, when external noise tries to silence your inner voice. In those moments, remember this: every small step you take toward your authenticity is an act of courage. And that courage does not just transform your life, it inspires others to do the same. When you decide to make yourself a priority, you are not just choosing a path of personal healing, you are choosing a path of deep transformation. Prioritizing yourself does not mean being perfect or having all the answers. It means being honest with yourself, listening to your needs, and respecting your limits. Carl Jung said that the journey toward wholeness begins when we accept our shadows, those parts of ourselves that we have avoided or rejected for so long. Often these shadows include aspects of our personality that we learned to hide because they were not accepted by others. Maybe it is your emotions, your desires, or even your talents. But those shadows, uncomfortable as they may be, hold immense power. Jung explained that integrating our shadows not only liberates us, but also grants us access to a source of energy and creativity that was previously blocked. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if you were no longer afraid to be yourself. If you could express your truth without worrying about the judgment of others. This freedom is the gift of prioritizing yourself. When you choose to embrace every part of yourself, even the ones you consider imperfect, you begin to live from a place of authenticity. And when you live authentically, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences start to flow into your life. This does not mean the path will be easy. There will be challenges, moments when you question if you are making the right decision. But every time you face those moments of doubt, you have the opportunity to choose yourself again. And with each choice, you strengthen your relationship with yourself, build your confidence, and take one more step toward wholeness. One of the biggest fears when prioritizing ourselves is the fear of rejection. We worry that by setting boundaries or choosing what is best for us, the people we love will abandon us. But Jung reminds us that the relationships truly worth keeping are those that respect our authenticity. If someone walks away because you choose to prioritize yourself, then that person was not meant to be in your life for the long term. It is important to remember that prioritizing yourself does not mean you stop caring for others. It means ensuring that your well-being is balanced with the well-being of those around you. Because when you take care of yourself, when you give yourself the time and space to recharge your energy, you can show up in your relationships from a place of fullness, not from depletion. This does not just improve your life, it enhances the quality of your connections with others. When you begin to prioritize yourself, something magical happens. The dynamics in your life start to change. Relationships that once felt draining or exhausting either begin to transform or naturally dissolve. This is not an accident. It is a reflection of your inner growth. As you evolve, the universe aligns to support that evolution. Carl Jung taught us that relationships act as mirrors. What we project onto others is a direct reflection of what is happening within us. If you do not value yourself, you will attract people who do not value you either. But the moment you begin to prioritize yourself, you set a new standard, and the people in your life react to that change. Some may not understand your decision to prioritize yourself. They might accuse you of being selfish or distant, but these reactions are nothing more than reflections of their own insecurities. Jung would call these responses projections, expressions of their inner struggles, rather than genuine reflections of you. That is why it is crucial not to take them personally. At the end of the day, prioritizing yourself is not about others. It is about you. It is about honoring your truth and choosing what is best for your well-being. But often, the greatest resistance does not come from others. It comes from within. A small voice in your mind might whisper, "Who am I to put myself first? Isn't it my responsibility to take care of others?" This voice is not yours. It is the result of years of conditioning, of a culture that often glorifies self-sacrifice at the expense of mental and emotional health. But Jung reminds us that we cannot give to others what we do not have for ourselves. If you do not cultivate your own well-being, you cannot genuinely offer it to others. Prioritizing yourself also means learning to let go of what no longer serves you, what no longer aligns with your essence. This includes toxic relationships, destructive habits, and limiting beliefs. Letting go is rarely easy. We often cling to what is familiar because it gives us a false sense of security. But Jung teaches us that true security comes from within, from our connection to our inner being, not from external circumstances. When you release what no longer belongs to you, you create space for what is truly meant for you. It is like tending a garden. By removing the weeds, you allow the flowers to flourish. This process can be uncomfortable at first, but the results are transformative. You begin to attract relationships that nourish you, opportunities that inspire you, and experiences that resonate with your deepest truth. And then, something powerful happens. You realize that you do not need to justify your worth. You do not need to prove to anyone that you deserve happiness or that your dreams are valid. Your worth is inherent, simply because you exist. This realization changes everything. It frees you from the constant pursuit of external validation and grants you permission to live life on your own terms. The journey to this transformation is not quick nor linear. There will be moments of doubt, relapses into old patterns, and unexpected challenges. But every time you choose to prioritize yourself, you take one more step toward wholeness. And although the work is internal, its effects ripple into every area of your life, your relationships, your career, your health, and most importantly, your inner peace. The inner peace that comes from prioritizing yourself is priceless. It is as if, after years of living in a constant state of tension, you can finally take a deep breath. This peace does not mean that life will be perfect. It means that, regardless of the challenges you face, you remain grounded in yourself and in your truth. Carl Jung taught that true power does not come from external control, but from connection with our inner essence. When you start living from a place of authenticity, something interesting happens. Life becomes simpler. Not because problems disappear, but because you stop complicating things by trying to fit into molds that were never designed for you. You free yourself from the need to please everyone and start focusing on what truly matters: your purpose, your passions, your well-being. Jung spoke of the self as the core of our psyche, the center that balances our consciousness and our unconscious. Prioritizing yourself is an act of connection with that self. It is recognizing that your life has value, not because of what you do or what others think of you, but simply because you exist. This realization is profoundly liberating. It gives you the courage to make decisions that once seemed impossible, like leaving a relationship that no longer brings you joy or pursuing a dream you had postponed out of fear. But prioritizing yourself does not always mean making drastic, life-altering changes. Sometimes it is about small, everyday acts, saying no when you truly mean it, giving yourself permission to rest without guilt, investing in something that helps you grow. These small actions accumulate over time. Slowly, you begin to build a life that reflects who you truly are, instead of a life dictated by the expectations of others. One of the most powerful ideas Jung left us with was the concept of individuation, the process of becoming the person you were meant to be. This path is not a destination, but an ongoing journey. Every time you choose to prioritize yourself, you take another step on that path. And with each step, you get closer to wholeness, to a life that is not only authentic, but also deeply meaningful. As you transform, you also transform the world around you. Carl Jung believed that the connection between our inner world and the external world is undeniable. When you begin to heal internally, you start to see how your relationships, opportunities, and surroundings align with this new version of yourself. It's as if the universe itself is responding to your decision to live in harmony with who you truly are. This transformation may be subtle at first. Perhaps you notice that certain people begin to drift away, while others enter your life with a completely different energy, one that resonates with your newfound sense of self. Maybe you suddenly experience a clarity that you lacked before, or you find yourself making decisions with more confidence and fewer doubts. These are the natural results of prioritizing yourself, of listening to your needs, and of honoring what truly matters to you. When you start to make yourself a priority, something within you shifts in an irreversible way. It's as if everything that once seemed impossible or out of reach suddenly begins to make sense. You come to the powerful realization that you don't need external validation. You don't need to shape yourself to fit into a world that often feels disconnected from authenticity. Instead, you begin to understand that your greatest power comes from within. Carl Jung left us with a profound message. The power you seek is already inside you. Your task is to dare to explore it, to embrace every part of yourself, even the aspects you once rejected. This journey is not easy, but it is the most rewarding path you can take. When you choose to prioritize yourself, you are telling the world that you deserve to live a life that is true to who you are. And that decision doesn't just affect you. It has a ripple effect that extends far beyond your own life. When you change, you inspire others to do the same. Your courage becomes a beacon of light for those still trapped in the darkness of their own doubts and fears. Think about that for a moment. By choosing to heal, to grow, to stand in your own power, you become a living example for others who are searching for their own strength. Now, it's your turn to take action. Reflect on your life and ask yourself, what can I do today to prioritize myself? Maybe it means setting a boundary. Maybe it means saying no to something that no longer serves you. Or perhaps it's as simple as taking a quiet moment to truly listen to what your heart needs. It doesn't matter how small the step is. What matters is that you take it. Every action counts. Every decision adds up. And before you know it, you will have transformed your life in ways you never imagined. And here's the most important part. This is not a journey you have to take alone. We are in this together. If this message resonated with you, if you feel that now is the time to prioritize yourself and take control of your life, share this with others. Help spread this truth so that more people can begin their own journey of inner healing. Leave a comment below and tell me, what part of this message spoke to your heart? What are you going to change starting today? Your experience could be the inspiration that someone else needs to take their first step. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming messages. Every time you interact with this content, whether by sharing, commenting, or simply giving it a like, you are helping to build a community where knowledge and personal growth can flourish. Together, we can reach more people who need to hear this. Remember, everything begins with you. When you choose to prioritize yourself, when you choose to heal and reconnect with who you truly are, you are creating a change that not only impacts your own life, but also the world around you. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this transformation. I'll see you in the next video. And never forget, the change you seek starts within you.